Number 2. A young woman walks on crutches towards a garden. She wears a long cape which trails behind her. A boy stands alongside the dirt road and offers her strawberries. A man on a donkey pulls an empty wooden cart. Close-up of the woman's feet. Frayed leather sandals, a dark birthmark in the shape of a star on her left ankle. A metaphor or a sign?
Ma, tell me, is there a moment that you can remember in life when you were bitten by the poetry bug?
Well, yes, actually. I remember that I started writing poems when I was in 4th or 5th grade. And I wrote this poem. I think it was a rhyming poem, but it was something about, I'll have chocolate ice cream instead of strawberry ice cream. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
But I remember that I gave this poem to my teacher, and she said, one day you're going to be a poet. And I think she wrote that in this little notepad that I carried around, and I kept that for a really long time.
Oh.
So that was, I guess, my first story.
That must have, okay, wow. So you've always had that note. Do you still have that note with you, you think?
It's somewhere in the garage.
So you do.
So, yeah.
That's great. Awesome. How about you, Amanda? Is there a moment or individual or a point in life when music became an integral part of your life?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly happened very early. Always had a high affinity for listening to music, and like for hitting pianos when I saw them. And when we moved to Chappaqua, New York, we had a piano in our house that just kind of was there. Started playing it and quickly started taking lessons. Gravitated towards it pretty intensely, and even quickly started, once I could read and everything, jotting down my own pieces.
How old were you then?
I was probably about 9 with the writing, 8 when I started taking lessons.
Oh, wow. So you've been composing for a really long time then.
And so music has just been part of things ever since.
Wow. Okay, great. How about getting involved in the aspect of free improvisation? I mean, obviously, when you were young, it sounded like you were improvising right away. But you know how there's always a point where we listen to popular music, and then something happens, or we hear something. Could you remember what maybe the first artist within the realms of experimentation that influenced you?
I definitely gravitated towards improvisation pretty early. In the very early double digits, and especially through jazz. I really had always this affinity for jazz music, and when I started to play it, obviously was exposed to improvisation and took to that right away. And I still have that. I love to come back to jazz roots whenever I can. And then through electronics is where I got into free improvisation.
Oh, okay.
Much later, just finding people just doing whatever they want, and instinctively I would do the thing of just listening to what they were doing, waiting, reflecting, and then trying to play with it. Not everybody does that.
Right.
Right. But just that's what you should do, is in my opinion. And yes, so improvisation in music, I mean, composers and improvisers often end up going together with that. And when I know when I was taking composition lessons and would put improvisational pieces into it, the one criticism would be the people who will do this best are other composers. So,
right.
I mean, they do kind of come together. The idea that you have music in your head and you're always reacting to what you hear and responding to it.
Wow. So at some point, there must have been a spark to connect you, Maw, to the realms of experimentation and sound, because you're working with Amanda, and you have definitely a connective affinity for the music. I'm curious, are there other recordings you've heard, or are there other musicians you've heard, or is Amanda the first experimental artist you've worked with?
Well, so my background as far as music is that when I was about 18, 19, I got very much into the punk rock scene in Southern California. I lived down there, and I was living with a bunch of artists and writers and musicians, and well, actually not musicians, but artists and writers and dancers, and we, you know, I was writing. My friend Mark was a painter, or is a painter, and we just decided that we wanted to start a band. And at that time, it was very, of course, DIY. So we started a band called the Pearls Before Swine, and there were a couple of us were actual musicians, but we were able to get shows somehow.
Wow!
And we played at the Anti-Club and just a lot of different places down in Southern California. And then, you know, because I don't know, music's always been such an important part of my life that I started doing other kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say experimental, but different kind of musical projects. I had this folkadelic band called the Flower Cops, and it was based around costumes, funny and props. And my friend Rob Bond wrote a lot of the songs, and so we used to play at just, you know, different spaces, and so I was doing that at the same time. This is years ago, and then what else have I done musically? And then I, you know, the Flower Cops ended up, you know, coming up here because a lot of us moved to Northern California, so we continued to do that. And then I was at the Headlands, and Amanda and I had met, and I just thought, oh, it would be really great to have music along with my poetry. So that's my very long answer to your question.
No, that's what I was looking for.
That was the first show we did together, was at the Headlands, 2011.
Okay, great. And you were doing a residency there, or?
Maw was an affiliate at that point, and she's a resident from the past, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in 2006, I was an artist in residence there. Later, I was an affiliate, and so I did a couple of performances there, and our first two were there.
Yes, so we did that, and you know, it was a mixture of you know, poetry with just, you know, piano improvisation and iPad synth improvisation.
Right. So tell me now, can you tell me what the name of your duo means? Because I think a lot of people will ask, what does that mean? Does it have a meaning?
Okay. Yes, it does.
So what's the name of the group?
Yes. Of the Mind. Okay. Pitta. It's not pita, like pita bread.
Okay. It's Pitta.
It's a popular misconception, actually.
Yes. People ask that all the time. So I lived in India for a while, and I studied Ayurveda while I was there. That was part of my experience there. And so in Ayurveda, there are three doshas, Pitta, Vata, and Kapha. And so when I met Amanda, we used to, you know, talk about Ayurveda, and she knew what I meant. So we used to kind of make jokes about how we both had Pitta of the mind. And so I said, well, we should, you know, if we ever have a band, we should call it Pitta of the Mind. So
that's a great name. So here we are.
Well, that's great, because I always wanted to know that. It helps me too when people ask me about what the duo is all about, and what does that name mean.
It's worth noting that it is the fire-oriented.
Yes. Fire and water.
Yes, fire and water.
Fire and water.
Yes.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And when, because a lot of folks who will know what you guys do as well as have seen you perform, when did you start utilizing the visual costume aspect? Because you always have some very interesting special color schemes going on every time you perform.
I think,
at least that's what I've seen.
Yeah, I think maybe after the Headlands, the first two performances, we decided to get into costumes, and we thought, oh, it'd be great to have, you know, kind of either a color scheme or, you know, a pattern theme. And so, you know, one show that we did at the Milk Bar was that blue? Or was that, I can't remember. That was like an outer space.
That was well, we've done a few outer space ones, but that was the first of those.
Right.
Yeah, and so there's been different themes that, you know, build a visual element, but also like cinematic or thematic element around it. We've done the space ones a few times. We've done cats.
Right.
We do things around different colors, blue, purple, especially.
And does the poetry tend to match the thematic element, or is there an interconnection?
I think that
It's a theme?
in a couple of our performances, I have. Oh yeah, that's right. So we had a blue theme one night, and I remembered that I read a lot of poems.
I think I remember that.
Remember that? Yeah. That
was
right.
That was,
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
there was that, and then certainly the cat one had things, and the space one did that.
And I know that you both get together and do work things out sonically. I'm wondering how much of that is composed in terms of the sound of the music, and how much of it is improvised. And do you know what Ma's going to read every time?
I do know what she's going to read. We go through the poems beforehand, so we know the text of what we're going to do. Obviously, you know, like during Ma's reading, she's going to play with that and you know, and act with it and stuff. But we know the words, we know the tone of the poem, what it's about, and so really what I try to find is what instrumentation I want for a particular thing, what mood, what theme, how I want to move through the poem. Maybe just do one thing throughout or switch between those. And that is usually as much scoring as we have. So I will say, you know, play this synthesizer with this patch for this couplet or something like that.
Right. And do you improvise within the context of your poetry to move with the sound?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where my improv.
Yeah, I was wondering about. I was wondering.
So I don't really memorize my poems, so I do rely on reading the text. But I guess my interpretive part comes with movement, and I don't have that planned.
Right. I was curious about. I know you also involve movement. I was going to ask about that.
Yes,
definitely.
Yeah.
And so I usually don't know what I'm going to do in that, you know, realm.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know, we seem to have a very good system of how we plan our performances, and it's, you know, it just is very organic also, you know. I feel that Amanda really gets my...
I mean, it's organic and, you know, very improvised, but, you know, we want to know what we're doing beforehand, so we come in with a plan to what we do. And, you know, we let that guide us, and then, you know, like we're in the moment, and, you know, start performing from there. We read the words, start reacting with music, and, you know, reacting with motion from that.
Is the movement purely improvisational, or is that also inspired by other art forms besides, well, obviously there's dance, but wondering about that.
Well, I'm definitely not a dancer.
Okay.
Me neither.
I did study performance art for a little while.
Oh, okay.
And I've done performance art. So I, you know, I guess I use a lot of hand movements. You know, I'm not leaping around or anything like that.
Right.
But, I would say my hand movements, I have a few standard moves.
Right. But it definitely reminded me of more of a dance-oriented performance as opposed to, you know, just, you know, I've seen poets read and sometimes they'll move around, but it's more to enunciate. But it seems your movement has a more artistic element to it that combines with the poetry and the music.
Yeah, it's very much a performative thing. It's not, you know, like just a poet reading with musical accompaniment.
Right.
Even though we do some that are kind of reminiscent of that style, but, you know, it's still within the combined performance and within, you know, like whatever motion and whatever even comedic motion we might want to do that we're feeling in the moment for that.
Great. Do you have any hints as to maybe what folks will experience when they come to Summit this year to see you perform?
Well, we can tell you the color scheme,
Okay.
red and black,
Yes.
and a little bit of white,
Little
but
bit of
mainly
white.
red and black.
My favorite combination.
And our two themes, half of the set is going to be about abstract art, and the other half is going to be about cinematic distance.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we have
Great.
that. You know, in terms of instrumentation for this.
Yeah, I was going to ask you next because
Yeah.
you create your own software.
I do.
Right?
I'm not going to be using that much for this performance.
Mhm.
So this one is going to be mostly based on hardware synthesizers.
Okay.
It's going to be sort of a purely electronic musician thing. Mixture of analog modular, you know, the Prophet 12 from Dave Smith, built right here in San Francisco, and a Moog theremin. That will
Wow.
definitely give us a bit of a space age theme and a little bit of that white.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, I look forward to seeing both of you perform Pitta of the Mind at the 13th Annual Outsounding Music Summit. I think that's July 30th.
It is July 30th. And
Great.
thanks so
We're
much
excited.
for organizing this, for having us. We're really excited to play and to be part of this event.
And you're very welcome. So,
Thank you, Rent.
all right. Thank you.
Score. The film score is a Turkish bathhouse, a thankless accountant, a backcountry road in Montana, a shy teenager, a loving uncle, a wine glass with a painting of a cow on it, the underbelly of a cat, the stream running along the outside of a prison, the shadow of an orchid, a heroin addict, a blanket statement, a lemon rolling down the hill, a blister on the tip of a finger, a forest ranger, a chunk of ice melting, a bully, a bowl of fresh honey, an abandoned baby, two bank robbers drinking coffee, the edge of the volcano, a loose belt, a sorrowful laugh, a broad brushstroke, 3 dice, the left side of his face, and an orange coat left on a park bench. The blue light hitting the Venetian glass in a way